I've not been particularly kind to superhero movies lately. Over the past 3 years, the same constant recycled gimmicks and tropes, along with increasingly bland and focus-tested writing, worse CGI, lackluster TV series, have paired out my interest and even made me think that comic book film might be outright bad for pop culture. I was pretty brutal to Ant-Man 3, and deservedly so, but Guardians of the Galaxy 3 might not be a superhero film, and that might be why it's easily one of the best movies the MCU has produced. It also might turn a generation of kids into traumatized vegans. I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. Thanks for watching, and do me a favor, hit subscribe and the bell. I make about one of these videos a week. They're all great, so don't miss even one. I promise I'm amazing. Now, James Gunn gets plenty of criticism, from old back joke tweets to the fact that he works with a crew of proven talent as frequent collaborators, including his brother and wife, to the fact that his name isn't spelled Zacksyder. Despite this valid criticism, he still makes excellent films. Guardians 3 is the rule, not the exception, and might round out the best whole MCU sub-franchise. Quadrilogy, technically, with a holiday special? Yes. Even the MCU Spider-Man films might fall short of the Guardians films. Now, spoilers do follow, so if you haven't watched the Guardians film yet, do me a favor, watch this later and finish it after you finish the film. You've been warned. It opens with Rocket humming Tom York's least favorite song and finding a distraught Peter Quill. Drunk over Gamora's death, he's completely out of commission when the guy from Jabberwock flies into nowhere to Heart's Crazy on You, and at that point, I'm like, fuck, do I like the MCU again? Because I think at least in this instance my faith has been partially restored because Adam Warlock really kicks Rocket and Drax and Mantis' ass before getting taken down by Nebula. Despite Peter's best efforts, Rocket's cybernetics make it impossible to heal him. What follows is a deep dive into Rocket Raccoon's backstory, and probably one of the most deeply emotionally affecting mainstream comic book adaptations that I've ever seen. We get the origin of Rocket and his half-world friends in the MCU at the hands of the High Evolutionary, whose origin also seems to differ pretty drastically from comics, but this is a pitch-perfect case of the MCU making reasonable patches and getting the character's spirit right in the context of the overall MCU, unlike their choices with Taskmaster and MODOK. However, Lila Otter and Walrus are still there, albeit cybernetic nightmares in the way Rocket is. Actually, I think they call him Peeps, not Walrus. Every single character kind of has the end of their arc in a way that felt very enriching and healing for a movie where a dude gets his face shredded off by a raccoon and a pig played by Judy Greer gets its head ripped off. Drax becomes a dad again. Nebula learns to nurture. Mantis learns that she doesn't have to. Peter learns to confront his own grief. Groot has been growing this entire time. Of course, Rocket heals. Kraglin and Cosmo and Aisha kind of get an arc, and at the end of it, Adam Warlock as well, without really explaining a whole lot of who he is, which I think is likely for the best because, yikes, is that a lot to get into. The team goes to great lengths to save Rocket, even breaking into a giant space butthole where Nathan Fillion plays a violent, heavily armed tardigrade, and James Gunn's hot wife gets shot in the leg, and yes, if you were married to her, you would put her in your movies too. It becomes very clear that the central theme of this film is that all living things, even disgusting living things or broken living things, are still living things and have essential dignity, value, and that harming animals, just because you perceive them to be lower life forms, is purely wrong. It is probably the most violent animal rights movie that has ever included a Ninja Turtle getting incinerated and a cyborg Cthulhu being bisected. When the crew discover what the High Evolutionary did to Rocket and his friends, they head to Counter-Earth and get into a dust-up with a suburb of Animen. They meet a Batwoman, a Batman, a Batgirl, a Batboy, and steal their Batmobile, and they go to take on the High Evolutionary, who promptly initiates an Animen apocalypse. Their final confrontation with the High Evolutionary is one of the better third acts of the MCU franchise. Full of action, it involves the crew saving a whole race of children, including Phyla Vel, you find out in the post-credits scene, a bunch of animals, and 3 obelisks that eat batteries and barf rainbows. Also, Peter almost dies before Adam saves him in a pastiche of Michelangelo's creation of Adam, which makes that reference doubly meta since it's Adam doing the saving of Peter. Anyhow, Phyla Vel's important. She's one of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the Abnett Landing run, and Golly, now we're only missing Moondragon, I think. The Guardians franchise probably succeeded in this film in convincing a generation of whatever children do end up getting exposed to this early enough, because holy shit, it's not for kids, to hopefully reconsider animals as being equal to humans in dignity and in feeling. And if I wasn't already a vegetarian, watching a guy's face get shredded to pulled pork, watching a space butthole, and a cute creature or 20 getting horribly experimented on probably would do it for me. Guardians 3 especially proves that the MCU, with its heavy stylistic hand and money and attempt to create mass appeal in the broadest product possible, is actually hurt by its lack of directorial vision, creativity, and ambitious risk-taking. In telling the weirdest and most violently off-putting story, Gunn managed to make one of the best films of the MCU and probably of his own career so far. And if he was able to elicit this kind of emotion from me in the theater, with a raccoon and a tree and an idiot and an idiot and a machine and an idiot, it's possible that his adaptation of Superman Legacy might be powerful enough of a piece of art to challenge the way that we all look at the world, in the way that All-Star Superman did for comic book fans. The MCU may not be dead. I kind of thought it was after Ant-Man 3. But its strongest soldier definitely just dropped the mic on his way out. Thanks everybody for watching. This has been the Doomcast. We'll see you next week.